Hi, is everybody there? Welcome back. It's Monday. I hope you all had a lovely weekend. We might have a few issues here today because the dog appears to be barking. I've shut my door, I've blocked the door, and I've shut the door into the dining room, but I can still hear her. So if any of the children in the house are listening and they'd like to come and talk to the dog, just remind her that she's supposed to be quiet for this half an hour. That'd be nice. Anyway, I hope you're all well and everyone's keeping fit and safe, and still the sun's still shining, so it's all good. And I hope lots of people are going to join today. I'm going to waffle as I normally do for a minute, and I've been advised have a cup of tea with me, and then therefore it might slow me down a little bit because I have a tendency to talk very fast, to paint very fast, and because I haven't got you guys with me, I can't see how everyone's doing, and it's really hard to watch the comments and see and paint at the same time and talk at the same time. And we're all really good at multitasking, us women and men, but sometimes I just keep going like a train. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, if I'm going too fast, just say, and I will try and slow down and take sips of my tea, which has been recommended. I can see lots of people joining, which is lovely. And again, I want to say a massive thank you to Mrs. Farino from the Burgate School in Fordingbridge, who has been promoting these workshops, and to all those amazing children that are taking, and staff who are taking, and families who are taking part as part of the Burgate's Artists project for their homeworking. And hi Millie, hi Hannah, I've seen people pop up now. And they're all working really hard and sharing their results, and it's just so lovely to have so many people joining in. So today we've done a flamingo, we've done what did we do? Too good. So we've done feathers. And this week we've got two projects. We're going to do a donkey today, as we're in the New Forest, well, kind of on the edge of the New Forest. And on Friday we're going to have a go at a deer. As yet I haven't sourced a photograph. So this photograph today has been taken by an amazing friend called Michelle, who, if you look her up on Instagram, she's called Flora Feathers. And she takes some brilliant photos of all the New Forest and surrounding areas. And that's her donkey photo that we're working from today. So if anyone's got any lovely pictures of deer, stags, probably just the head that they want to send in, then we can have a go. So that will be Friday's project. So today we're moving on from feathers to fur. So just slightly different techniques, and we'll be going over some of the same techniques that we've done, because I know there's some new people joining today, and there's new people joining in that maybe have just watched their children paint, and today they're actually going to have a go, which is brilliant. So I'm going to reiterate some of my little tips and just little hints and tips of how I paint with watercolour. Because again, it is how I paint, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's how everybody paints watercolour. It's just the way I do it, and the ultimate goal is to have fun and really enjoy yourself today. And hopefully at the end of the session you'll keep your paints out. And the trick in my house, because I've got a lovely little dedicated zone now, but the trick in my house is not to pack them away for a while if you're allowed to keep them out, because then you'll walk past, you'll pick up the brush, you'll have another little go, and you'll think, oh, I'll get another piece of paper and have another play. And it just keeps practice and enjoy it. Excuse me, sip of tea. So today's technique, we are going to, well, hopefully you've all drawn out your beautiful cheeky smiley donkey onto your watercolour paper, or your someone's done a laughy face. What does that mean? Okay, hopefully I'm really entertaining. Oh, and a thumbs up, that's good. As long as I don't see any angry faces, it's fine. So we're doing this lovely donkey, which I hope you've all drawn out. You can either draw it yourself from the photograph that Michelle took, or you can push it through, which is the technique which I taught you how to do on your prep sheets, which is really handy if you just either are put off by painting because you can't draw, or you just want to really quickly get your paints out and have a play. So you can just push through from a photograph. It's really nice to get permission from the artist, the photographer that's taking it. Especially if you're going to sell the artwork afterwards, it's really good to have their permission. So you should all have your sketch sketched out. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to sort of resemble a donkey. Some of your donkeys might end up looking more like ponies, horses. I'm hoping they'll look like a four-legged furry animal with ears, but there's no rules, we just want to have fun. So you've got your paper on your board, If you can tape it to your board, even better, because we're going to use a lot of water and the paper might buckle. If you can't tape it to a board, you can tape it to your table. So today I'm again using tubes, mainly because I've got so many odd tubes from years and years. Some of these are from art college from 30 years ago that I'm still using up. So I'm gonna stick with my tubes in my palette. But if you've got pans, then that's absolutely brilliant, because actually a lot of the colours will be ready mixed for you, which makes it easier. And today I think we're probably only going to need to use a brown, which you can either use straight from your pan or from your tube, or you can mix. And something like a yellow ochre, which is what I suggested, which is like a sandy colour, sandy yellow colour, and then that lovely indigo blue or a dark blue, but let's try and avoid black again, because the black on the watercolour just really does deaden your painting. So one thing you can do, if you've got an old palette, and you could just mix all of the colours up in your palette to make a black, or a really, really dark brown, dark blue, that would work. Another tool we're going to use today, which I didn't put on the sheet, and that's because I didn't expect many of you to have them, but if you have to hand one of these amazing fan brushes, if you don't, it's fine. If you've got any old brushes with like really tired old bristles, like this kind of thing, where you know you wouldn't want to do a nice delicate watercolour with that, you can use these. I'll show you how we'll use them for the fur, and when you want to flick out the edges for the fur, like for his furry ears, that kind of thing. And another thing, if you've got one, and again I didn't put it on the list because it doesn't matter, would be a white pen or a white pencil, or something like a white gouache or a white acrylic, which we might use at the end to do some whiskers if we get that far. So, is everybody ready? I'll stop waffling, drink some more tea, and we're going to start with the ears. Oh goodness, most important thing, has everyone got clean water? You know how I feel about your water being clean? As soon as your water gets muddy or you can't see through your water, I bet that's fun, you need to clean your water, because putting dirty water on your painting is going to make a dirty, muddy painting. We want to keep this really fresh and alive. So I'm going to move you, see if I can do it without dropping you. I'm going to move you to my, oh yes Dom, nice cup. Yes, look, there we go, it's got my little birdies on it. I think some of them have got washed off in the dishwasher, but there you go, thanks Dom. Product placement, of course. I'm going to move you to the tripod so you can hopefully look down. This is so professional. Right, can you let me know if you can see the donkey, you can see the palettes, and the lighting looks okay today. Let me just click on the picture to focus it. There we go. I think we're all right. Wow, 44 people watching. This is amazing. Right, you can see all my mucky palettes. There we go. I'm going to start. Yep, we can see it all. Thanks, Millie. Excellent. Okay, biggest brush. I'm going to put this behind the ear. Okay, biggest brush you have, and lots of clean water. I'm just going to bring you up on my computer so I can actually see any comments. While I'm faffing, if you can mix up a really, really watery solution of the yellow ochre or the sandy yellow colour for me, while I'm just going to faff. Excellent. Great, I can see you now. That's cool. Oh, I wish I could see you. How cool would that be? Oh, we'll have to try and maybe there's a way you can do some kind of virtual house party where we all paint together. Well, maybe that's an experiment for another week. Right, so lots of lovely water. Your biggest brush. I'm going to use this brush here, which is a 10, but whatever you've got really, it doesn't matter. A yellowy, ochre, sandy colour, and we're going to start with the inside of his ears, and I really want you to just wash it on. Don't worry if you splodge. Just take it all up, fill the whole of his ear, loads of water, keep it really, really, really wet and moving. And in fact, while we're there, we'll do both ears because we're going to give them both the same treatment. So always start at the top of the painting, then you don't smudge it as you work your way down. Lots of lovely washies, and so I'm washing, so I'm putting the paint on the page and then I'm rinsing out the colour off the brush. And then I'm just using a bit more water just to bring it to the edges. So that should be lovely and wet. Just bring it to the top of his head there. Right, then what I'd like you to do, I'm going to take a sip of tea and slow down. Oh, is it frozen? Are you still there? Someone says it's frozen. It still says it's going. Let's keep going. Right, then I want you to get some brown. So either mix your brown or find a brown in your palette or your pans. And a slightly less water because we've got a lot of water on the page already. But quite a lot of paint on this one actually, because we're going to go really quite rich. So a nice dark brown. I'm going to add a bit of blue to mine just to make it a bit richer. Now I'm going to start at the top of his ear. And I'm going to drop in, using the point of the brush, I'm going to drop in some of those lovely fairy flicky eary bits, and bringing it round, letting it run in so you get all that natural fur effect. Just going around the edge, just letting it grab into the sides where the water is, like that, and then do the same and bring it down into that front of that ear. So we're leaving that area here light at the moment. And again, bring it up here. And then what you can do, if you have got one of those dry brushes or any dry brush in your kit, you just grab your brush and while it's still wet, you can flick out and get some really, really cool scruffy edges, because we want it to be really natural. I mean, he's quite a character, isn't he? So we want some real character in those ears. So you can just flick out like that, and then leave that to dry a little bit, and then go into your other ear while you've still got enough brown on. If you haven't got enough brown, add a bit more. But again, so it's not as wet as your first wash. It's a lot more concentrated with the paint, but enough so that it's dark and it still flows in into the wet paint like that. Now again, if you get too, like I've said before, if you get too much paint, it will runs everywhere. Just grab a tissue, a bit of kitchen towel, and you can mop up what you've done and you can paint over it. It's fine, and there's no rules. If your ear ends up being completely brown, it's fine. No one's going to know. No one's going to complain that that donkey doesn't look like the donkey that Michelle took. So do the same with this one. Just pull out while it's wet some little flicky flick. Like something like that. I'll have a try with that other fluffy brush if that works. Just experiment, just see what you can get, what effects you can get. It's really, really cool technique for doing, if you're going to do feathers as well, like close-up feathers. But you can also use the tip of your brush. If you've got a lovely point on it, you can pull out some dents of bits of fur around there. And then we're going to pull that line around. So his ears are already starting to look a bit furry, but obviously there's that blank area in the middle. So what we need to do, we need to fill that again with a brown, but I think maybe a slightly bluey brown. So if you've got some blue or indigo, mix it in with your brown, just make a slightly darker shade, and then just do the same thing again, but just gently dropping it in, because you don't want to completely fill that ear with colour, because you still want to leave those white fluffy bits. So just dropping in some little central bits, because that's the bit inside the ear, so it's darker. And do the same with this one. Is it frozen or are you still there? I think it's still there. Some people are saying it's frozen. I'm really sorry about that, but it says it's still recording at the moment, so hopefully. I am saving all these videos, and I've now got a YouTube channel, which is very exciting, so I'm uploading them to YouTube afterwards. So if you do lose any connection while you're going, you can have another go later. Oh, falling behind the sip for tea. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to go a bit slower. I might need someone to make me another cup. So see how you think your ears are looking. I'm looking at mine now and thinking, right, okay, what I need is a bit more brown down this here. I look at the photograph. Just try and look at your photograph as much as you can, in the same way that if you were painting from real life and you had a still life in front of you, you need to be looking at your picture more than you are actually at your painting, to be really studying it and looking at the tones, the light and shade. At the moment I'm really looking at textures, so just to get that really fun textures of the watercolour. Right, we can come back to the ears, we can add more detail. At the moment I want to carry on because this donkey's he's very much the same colour in places, so while we've all got those colours mixed up in our palette, let's go mad. Right, let's go. When you're ready, you don't have to do it now, you can carry on with your ears. What we're going to do is going to take all the paint off our brush, and a bit like we did with the flamingo, because I want the paint to really run and bleed and do crazy stuff, we're just going to paint with water for a minute. So this little tufty area here, we're going to leave it light, so that's going to be the light of your paper. And then I'm going to bring it over his eyebrow and around the side here. So any areas, if you squint at your photograph, any areas. Oh, I've gone quiet apparently. There we go. Is that better? I think I had the wrong earpiece in. I'm probably very loud now, sorry. So any areas that are light on the page, you want that to be the light of the white of the paper coming through. So what you're going to try and do is keep those, keep the paint away from those areas. But if it bleeds in, it's not a problem. It's like we said before, it's a natural subject. So you do what you like with the where all the paint goes. God, I'm waffling now. Right. So, are you with me? You're all right. Okay, so we're going to blend it down, and what you can see already is where I've put in some water in and I've touched the edge of the ears. It might be the same for you, or your paint might be drier. Some of that paint is starting to blend in, and that's the kind of effect we want, where it's really blending in really naturally. So then go back to your brown. If you want to go slightly redder, you can add a bit of red in, because he's he's a gorgeous colour, isn't he? Now these are the donkeys that we get in the New Forest where we are. I mean, a lot of you are local, I know, but there are some people that aren't. So we're very lucky around here, and these donkeys roam the forest, and it's their home. We're the intruders, and they roam free, and they're in the outside people's gardens, rubbing up against the cars often if you park in the forest, and they're just beautiful, and they're so cheeky. Right, so I've mixed up some of this darker reddy brown, and I'm just doing the same as I did with the feathers, just running it round in the areas that look darker in the photograph. I'm going to give him a bit more of a mahogany fluffy bit at the back there, I think. I'm hoping all your donkeys, when I see them, are going to have such different personalities. So we're going to drag some more little furry bits around here. So try and leave that section there, that little tuft of hair, try and leave that white if you can. You can put a wash over it later. And the same with his eyebrows. He's got that lovely like white section there, just above his eyelashes, and then a darker section round the back. So if you can just observe those little sections when you're laying your paint down, and we can add some darker bits in. And again, you can use your dry brush to flick out the edges if you want, or just keep using the point of this brush. But I think the bigger the brush, the better for this one, because we can be a bit freer with it. Excuse me. So if you've got some paint water still in these areas, I'm going to wet mine a bit more because it's dried. Thanks, Maria. I'm not going to repeat that comment, but thank you very much. So I'm going to take a bit more of that nice reddy brown. And so this is the edge of his nose, and I think this is where we really need to try and keep that quite white, because that's the bit that's right at the front. Because of the angle the photo's been taken at, you get this foreshortening. So this area here is really, that's why he looks so funky and cool, because his nose is right in the camera. So we need to make sure we keep a lot of this area light up here to get the perspective right. So keep dropping it in, and the wetter the paper is, the more you'll get all those lovely little areas where the paint's bleeding and it looks more natural and more like fur. And you can mix up some slightly different tones of a reddy brown just to add a little bit more interest. And up over the top of his nose. And you can see as it's drying, it dries. I mean, a lot of this depends on what paint you're using, what your paper's like, how much water you've used, how warm it is in your house. Although there's so many different, oh, I can't think of the word. Help me. Variations, I suppose. So obviously some people's paint's going to dry a lot lighter or darker. So once it's dry, you can see then how much more paint you need to go back over with for the effect that you like. So we're bringing him down here. Excuse me. I can hear a delivery lorry outside, so I'm predicting any minute now the dog's going to bark incredibly loud, so I do apologise. She is a mental dog, but we love her. Okay, so bringing that down. And what I think we'll do, normally I would go onto the nose, but I just think it's probably sensible, as we've got the brown on our brush and we're working in the same way, why don't we bring, if you're there, if you're ready, bring the rest of that water down below his chin. In fact, what we're going to do, because it's quite hard to see from the photograph actually, but I'm going to bring it right down under his lip. Because what we're going to want to make that, I can't speak, want to make that really stand out so it pushes it forward. So we're going to want to go quite dark under there. So bring the brown down, the water down, and then get straight in there with your lovely rich reddy brown, whatever colour you've chosen to do, and just get some colour right in there. And really let it flow, let it run. And if you tip your board up, you can get it to drip down. If you've done it on a board, if you haven't, it's fine. But you just let it do its thing, because then you end up with these lovely little natural little brush marks or watermarks. That just gives your painting a bit more personality. So when I drew this out for you, the template, I changed it slightly from the photograph, because I think in the actual photograph you can see a bit of his back, which I think to include that made it look a little bit odd. So what I've actually done is we've just done his neck and mix in some slightly reddish shade in areas just to give it a bit of variety. Loads of water. Go on, it's watercolour. It's what it's all about. Loads of water. If the paper buckles, you can usually dry it out with a hairdryer afterwards. And when you put it in your frame, it will all be flat and fine. So this area here is really quite dark, and I'm going to make it even darker than the photograph because I really want his nose to push forward. So if you've got some dark blue or indigo or dark red or something, anything to just really darken up your brown. We don't want it to be black, but we do want it a lot darker. And just try dropping in some much stronger colour in there, and then instantly his face is going to pop forward. And if you look at the picture, there's quite a bit darker around here. And while you've got that dark mixed up, these areas should have dried quite nicely now, so you can start to drop in a few little darker furry areas around his nose, and then this bit here. Really looking at the photograph to see where those bits go, but up and around his eye. Now, again, like we did with the toucan and with the pheasant, it's really nice to not get a hard edge. So to avoid that hard edge when you've laid another wash down, clean off all the paint off your brush, just have fresh water on your brush, and then just blend out and blend it in so it runs, and then you get that lovely natural. Do the same with the other side. How are you doing? I wish I could see what you're doing already. Oh, that would be so cool. How's all the Burgate artists doing? Are there any Burgate artists there today? Mrs. Farina says she misses you loads and she's so proud of you. I know I said that at the beginning, but in case you've just tuned in and you missed it. I wonder who's the furthest away. If you've got time to stop, take a sip of tea like I should be doing now, and you've got time to tell me where you are in the world, that would be really cool. Because obviously with the time zone and it being live, I'm not expecting anyone to have got up in the middle of the night and joined in, but but why not? So what I'm doing now, I'm just sort of playing really. I've got the dark on my brush and I'm going around any areas that I think should be a bit darker. This area inside his ear. And again, just try and constantly, either using your dry brush to blend it out like this, just to get those nice flicky little furry areas. Oh God, some of the things I say sometimes, honestly. You know what I mean. Okay. And this area here for me, and yours are all going to be very different to mine, I'm sure, but this area for me is dried really pale, so I'm just going to use a nice washy brown again, just to add a bit more colour into this area because it's just disappeared. I'm just going to look like he's got white cheeks. Although there are little white areas on the edge, which I'm trying to keep. Oh, I stopped talking. I forgot where I was again. I did that last week. I was in the zone. Okay, how's all your colour? How's your water looking? What colour are you at? I'm sort of murky. If you'll get, because the next thing I'd like to tackle this nose. So ideally, I think fresh water would be great. If you're not too dirty, that's fine. I'm going to give you time to go and change your water. And let's go for clean fresh water, because what we're going to do is we're going to do a really similar technique to what we've done with the fur on the rest of him, and we're going to use just water. And if you use the water straight from your jar and it's full of a dark brown murky water, then his nose is going to be dark brown and murky, because we want to start with fresh clean water before we add the nice grey bluey. Oh, don't you just love his nose? Something about a donkey or a horse's nose. Oh, sorry, you lost me for a minute there. How are we doing? I'll give you a couple of minutes to change your water, or keep on going with your fur. So I'm looking at mine now, and when it's dry, we're going to go back looking at mine, and it needs a lot more detail, or even some paint in this area, because I left that completely pale. But that's fine, because the main bulk of the detail we're going to try and put into his nose, because that's the bit that's closest to the camera. So we want that to be the focal part, and then obviously his eyes are going to need some sparkle in them. I think I could probably do a bit more work on the ears, but at the moment I'm quite happy. I like the way these bits have just flopped down. That's quite nice, quite natural. So let's go for it. If you're not there, give me a shout if you want me to slow down. So I'm going to go clean water, clean brush, and I'm going to put water all over this nose, and most of this is going to stay fairly light. But what we want is that gorgeous effect you get with a wet on wet. So that's all wet. Then in your palette, depending on what colours you've got, I'm going to go for a bluey grey. it's quite handy to have a spare bit of watercolour paper near you, just to try, especially with a colour like this that you're sort of making yourself probably from your palette. Just handy, just have an idea of what the colour's going to look like. So I'm going for that sort of colour, which is that's a grey, isn't it? Bluey grey. Quite wet, but only sort of a little bit on the end of your brush because it's going to go crazy. And then what we're going to use is the point, the very, very point of your brush, and then just try, this is so fun, just dropping in lots of little dots to try and recreate the texture on the front of that gorgeous muzzle. Is that called a muzzle? Oh dear. I'm hoping, someone's just said our donkey looks hilarious, and that's Emma. Hi Emma. I'm hoping all your donkeys do look hilarious because they are hilarious, and it's such a brilliant photo that I'm hoping they're all going to really make you smile. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these. So just dropping in the subtle little greys, and you can see then how the wet on wet is affecting the paint when you drop it in the water. You're getting it sort of repelling it slightly, and you're getting all that lovely little texture. So we're going to try and bring a few little grey areas around here, keeping as much white as you can. And a bit of grey around the bottom edge. Now this is where we're going to use our sort of 3D modelling like we did with the toucan and the flamingo. So if you squint and look at the light and shade on those beautiful nostrils, you can see you've got a darker area there, and you've got a darker area here, and this top edge is light, and that's what's going to make it look 3D. And then obviously we're going to fill this dark bit in when it's a bit drier in a minute. So just keep dropping in. Now what you could do, if it's too wet and you've got a hairdryer to hand, you could hairdryer that off and get some of that water off, or you can get a tissue and just blot it out a little bit. If it's gone too crazy, you can just and actually using the tissue, you can remove a bit of the paint and just get a little bit of the paper back. So it's really, really helpful to have a tissue. I've often got one in my hand all the time just to dab out the paint. So we're going to bring that round. Now, depending on how much water you've got on your nose, as to how the next bit's going to go, but we're going to mix up a slightly darker grey. Mine's a bit bluey, but that's fine. I'm a bit brown in it. And then do exactly the same that you did before with the light grey, and then just drop it in, build it up, but just leaving enough gaps so you still get the white coming through. And you really want to concentrate on that front area of his nose. And then bring it round underneath. I feel like I should have some music on in the background, a little theme tune. And up the top. Now I've sort of on the template I drew some lines just to show that that's obviously like a curved area. So often when I'm doing 3D shapes, I tend to use my brush in the same direction that shape is, just because if I was to go up and down with my brush in this area, well, you're not really reflecting the shape of the object or the animal. So just sort of bring your brush round in that nice little curved. Do you see what I mean? Just dragging it round. Okay, and then while you've got the grey on your brush, have a look anywhere else in your painting where you think you might like some grey. So I'm thinking I might make a start on the eye. I'm just going to drop in some grey up here. Now I'm not going to do wet on wet on this eye because I want a bit more control, a bit more detail. We might even use a smaller brush in a minute. So I'm going to put a bit of grey up here. And I didn't blend out that little area, did I? There we go. So let's go crazy. Let's make him smile. Let's get some nostrils in there. Mix up a really, really dark brown or a really dark blue, as close as you've got to black in your palette. but this is what's going to give it the depth. It's up to you, depending on how big your brush is, depending how much water you've got on your page. You just want to be a little bit cautious here because we don't want the nostrils to completely run out. But if you've got a tissue to hand, it's fine. So we're going to drop in. Again, if you do it in little tiny little strokes, then you can leave some little areas that look like the hair coming around his nostrils. And lots of richness there, just to there. And then I'm going to clean off my brush completely. Take off the water, and then I'm just going to try and blend that out so it's not completely solid, so it just sort of bleeds in to that other grey area there. Well, that's quite dark, isn't it? I think that's right. And then do the same with this one. If you're struggling with your brushes, I swear the most important thing with your brush is that you keep that point really, really lovely. So if you are finding you've got no control in these small areas, even though that's such a big brush, it's because you need to really look after your brush. You know, and you can't get that detail with a brush that's doing this. It's just you just can't control it. So if there's one thing you need to invest in with watercolours, is really nice brushes. Paper you can get away with mostly, although you will get different effects depending on the paper you use. But a lovely brush with a point on the end is what you need. So that's a bit dark. I'm going to take a bit of paint off that and share it with that one. It's a bit darker, that one. Okay. And then hopefully this little area down here is still a bit wet. So again, the same kind of rich, dark blue, dark brown, whatever you've gone for. Whee! See, there we go. It's a bit wet. Right, that's where you need your tissue. I'm just going to dry that off a little bit because it's a bit wet. And then just bring in this. This is where he's going to get his personality as well as the eyes. So if it bleeds up, that's fine, but you just don't want to go too crazy. And you can control it with the tissue, just so that that's his top lip. It hasn't bleeded in too much. And then this again is a bit like the nostrils. It's a 3D. His bottom lip's going to have a bit of shadow underneath. My grey's really dried out quite light, so I'm going to go in again while that's still damp. With some more darker areas, which obviously, because that paper's still not wet, they'll need to be blended out with just water, but just to give that a little bit more focus. Oh. And now's a good time. How long have we been here for? Oh goodness, look, 38 minutes already. So now's a really good time to just stand back and have a look and see how it's looking, because you can get so focused in on one little area that it's really, really good to just stand back and think, oh no, that area needs to be a little darker. I've gone too crazy with that. I'm going to take a bit of paint off. Yeah, I can't wait to see these. This is going to be brilliant. I think this is probably harder than the toucans and the flamingo. Is that word escaping me? But they're still using the same techniques. It's just taking it up a next level. And if you missed out on those other tutorials, you can find them on my website or on YouTube, or I think they're still saved on here on Facebook. Right. I think he's looking okay. He needs a bit more work around here, but that's okay. And that nostril's definitely darker than that one, but that's fine. I think I'm going to go at the eyes now because he really needs to come alive. And if any of you are only on a half an hour schedule, it's probably be nice for you to be able to get to that point. So let's have a look at his eyes. Now, I think they're quite a rich brown, aren't they? It's hard to tell from the photograph. So let's use the brown with a bit of red. And I've gone to a smaller brush now, and a bit more control and much less water, because you just need to be able to control this area here. So what we want to do is make sure, same as we did with the birds, that you leave some white for his eye. It's not the end of the world because you can put it in afterwards with a white pen or with some white acrylic or gouache. So I'm just going to put a bit of brown on that front edge, and while I'm there, if I can do it without smudging this bit, I'm going to do the same on this side, because both of the eyes need the same treatment, obviously. Just leaving a little bit of white. And then mix up your dark, if you've got some dark blue left, again keep it nice and not thick, but not so wet. And I'm going to drag in some paint up here and just let it bleed into the brown, but making sure you keep that white area. It's got that lovely white of his eye there, and then the shadow that kind of comes around under those lashes. The more you look at your photographic reference, the more you'll be able to get it right. It's really helpful just to keep watching. Right, I'm going to drag. Well, I've got some dark there. I'm just going to put some highlights, some shadows up around here. It's going to look like he's got mascara on at the minute, I think. And blend those bits out, and blend those bits out, and then I think a little bit of blue never hurts in an eye because it's been taken outside, so just a bit of a reflection of the eye. So just a tiny bit of blue on your brush, just there, and keeping the white. And then what you can do, this is a top tip for eyes. If you get your tissue, screw it up into a tiny little point, and then just take a bit out of the paint, just to give that a natural sort of glint and highlight in the eye there. And I'm going to stick with my small brush. Oops. And I'm going to have a look at these eyebrows, eyelashes. I'm not quite sure where we are with all these bits are, but just needs a bit of colour in there. Now some of you might have got to the point where you probably should be stopping, and this is all down to personal preference, and it's down to how you want your final picture to look. That's why I say it's really good to stand back and have a look, and just see how it's coming together. So if you think you might be there, stop. If you're not sure, then you can keep on going with me, and we'll just add a bit more detail in. So I'm going to squinting at my picture now and looking to see whether everything looks like it's sort of in the right perspective. Is the nose standing forward? I think the ears could go back more. The ears in mine look like they're stuck to the top of his head rather than being at the back of his head. So to try and resolve that, I'm going to go with a slightly darker brown, and I'm going to drop in some little areas here that just push that ear back. Again, blending it in. May not be exactly as it is on the photograph, but I just know that will look like they're stuck on the top of his head rather than being at the back. And swoosh it round. Okay, still with the small brush then, I'm going to add a bit more detail to that gorgeous nose. So it's probably dried out enough now to go in with some dark grey. Just going to look at that nostril again and put a bit more dark in there. And under here, so this is the bit where that really makes that stand out now. If you drop in some darker shadows. Oh, it's still wet. Oh, that's good. So again, the more you make this bit look like it's standing forward, the more you'll get that amazing sort of foreshortening, they call it. How are we doing? We finding this one harder? Just gonna add in a few little wrinkly bits up here and then blend them out again so they don't look like a hard line. So you can just keep going now, adding in detail, dropping in, just looking at your photograph, thinking, right, that's not quite standing out where it should. My donkey's not looking like a donkey, he looks like a penguin. Penguin? So really lots of water and lots of little delicate brush strokes for this one, for the fur. And then we've really now got to make him smile more. That's what we need right now, is a smiley donkey in our lives. So picking that grey, browny, whatever you've gone for your darkness, just bringing it in. I'm not going to take mine too far around because I think it'll look too cartoony, but just to here. And then doing the same thing, clean brush, just water, just let it bleed down so you get that lovely gradient of colour. I think my nostrils could stand out even more, so I'm going to put slightly more dark brown around here. And I'm kind of drawing with the paint now, so looking at any areas where you want to add a little bit more detail, you just kind of draw them in with the paintbrush, but just make sure that you are either using a real watery solution so that it blends down, or that you then clean your brush and soften it off, otherwise it will just look too strong. And I'm just going to scruff him up a bit, I think. You can see when you look at it now, if you stand back, you can see how adding that dark area, you can go even darker actually, really just pushes that area of his face forwards. Well, I hope it does. It looks like it does from here. Oh, see, I didn't blend that area in. Look. Right, I could carry on and carry on and carry on, but I think, oh, a bit more brown around here. I think I'm going to say I'm nearly done, and then I'm going to show you a few of the techniques for finishing them off. Yeah, let's call him done. Right, so to bring him alive, to make him a proper cheeky New Forest pony, he's got to have some splatters around him, hasn't he? He needs something to bring him alive. I'm sure some of you already started this. Clean water. Mine isn't, so I haven't got time to run away. But clean water. Something like a light blue actually would be quite nice with this, I think. A light blue and a brown for the splashes. So really watery, clean water, big brush, flick, 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 and over his nose and all over, because it's just, I don't know, I love it. I think it makes it really brings it alive. The bigger the brush, obviously, the bigger the splodges you're going to get. And then I think maybe some brown just to make him look a bit muddy. Just splishing it round. Come up with your own signature style of splash. A little bit more over his ears. more of a puddle of blue there. Oh, go crazy, a bit more on his nose. There we go. What do you reckon? How have you done? When it's dry, I'm not going to do it now because mine's still wet and it's not going to work. Well, I could try actually, but I don't think it'll work. And you've got a white pen. Oh yes, you could. You can then draw in your whiskers, which can come out, in all those crazy areas, or you can do them in I don't know, in a brown. I don't know, but it really would be nice if they were white. So when this is all dry, and you can draw in. There you go. Some of them are working there. So either this is I don't know where I got this from, just a waterproof white pen, or you can use a really fine paintbrush. Yeah, it's not going to work until it's dry really to get that, but you can get the idea. And again, if you haven't left enough white in your eye, you can save it and you can drop in some white there. But or you can use a really fine white paintbrush and some white acrylic or gouache just to draw out those. I mean, he needs those whiskers. He's got to have them. If your pencil line was really dark, when it's completely dry, and you've got one of these rubbers, which are really cool. It's like a State of Mind, but it's a putty rubber. You can go over your whole painting and get most of those pencil lines should come out. But obviously wait till it's completely dry. And the most important thing with your masterpiece is you need to sign it. Because obviously it's going on the wall. I hope you'll have a whole gallery of them soon. A nice big bold signature, get the date right. So I keep getting it wrong, still think I'm in 2019. And if you want to, once it's dry, you can go over with a black sort of outline pen just to give it a little bit more life. But I think actually he looks quite furry and funky. And these little areas here have dried really nicely. And that's what I love about watercolour, is you never really know. I'm going to bring it up a bit closer. You never really know what you're going to get until it dries. But absolutely love those bits because they look like little furry edges. There we go. I hope you've all kept up. I hope it's been a bit slower. It's a lot longer than the last ones, but I've loved it again, and I've loved having you all along. And there's still 37 people watching. Wow, that's amazing. Can you send me your donkeys? I'd love to see them. I've had some really, really brilliant photographs of you all working. People young and old doing these tutorials. It's so lovely to be able to do them for you. Yeah, we're going to come back on Friday at 2 o'clock and we'll have a go at a deer. So if you've got paint in your palette now, leave it all in your palette if you can. Wrap some cling film around it, or maybe not cling film because it's not very environmentally friendly. Let's go for some paper towel or something, or just a sheet of paper over your palette. Because we'll be using the same colours, so it'll be the browns, the greys, the blues. I'll find a lovely photograph for us to work from, and I will upload all the reference for you onto my website. And so if you send me, it's up to you how you want to send the photographs. You can message me, DM me, email me, put them on the bottom of this thread. I'll find them all, I'll download them all, and I'll put them all in a gallery like I've done with the others. It's been brilliant. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week and see you Friday.